All right, so here we are. We're saving another one. It's getting some modifications. We are still waiting on a couple things to come yet. And let's do an overall look of what we got going on with this car right now. All right, so let's just do one quick walk around here. You can tell this car did have some paintwork in the front. Like I said, I always check everything, a little chip there, which is no big deal. Actually looks pretty decent when you do a walk around. It's got some nice tint on the windows. The roof is showing its age in the paint. You can see the cracks in that. There's just a bunch of rags here. It did have a clutch installed recently. Very nice across the back. The deck lid is starting to show the cracking like they normally do. Got some depot taillights, which is pretty much a, we'll just say they're almost a stock taillight, because they are in every single one. The brakes look good. The tires look good. Just checking out like the interior. It's got a Hurst shifter, a tuner. Somebody did do the headliner, which is pretty cool. Oh yeah, and another thing, no sunroof. The seat is showing its age for sure, which is pretty common with these things now that they're in their 20s. Nice little quick release NRG wheel, which is pretty cool. You know, just taking a look here. Solid motor mounts at one time. This thing does have some BCs. They've been on there for a long time. I think they're date coded 2015. You know, radiator was replaced at one time. MPX catch can, which is definitely a plus. Somebody did paint this. I can tell from these numbers that this is a Mopar coil, and we do got some Mopar wires. Cold air kit. Good old Die Hard here. It's been a while since I've seen a Sears battery. But oh yeah, clutch. When the clutch, I guess when they did the clutch upgrade, they put the braided line going down to the clutch, which is a very good upgrade. Like I said, stock injectors. This intake looks like it's been on here for quite some time. I'm gonna grab our flashlight here. It does have a big front mount. Looks like it's probably an MPX. It's got the nice little nostril emblem here. The fog lights and the headlights are actually in some good condition. Let's check everything out down here. Stock pipes going there. Looks like it did have the polyurethane, some of the polyurethane kit put into it. Brakes look good. Axles look good. Look, you can tell we do have some oil leaks that we are going to be addressing. We are going to be upgrading the center mount. We'll have all of this stuff apart. We'll be readjusting that bracket for the ECM. Just getting everything down into where it needs to be. There's a little bend there in the back side of this. So it's kind of hard to say what actually happened there. That's weird. It does have, looks like we got an MPX exhaust. And for some reason it has a different resonator. Looks like it's a big vibrant resonator or a muffler put into it here. MPX catless pipe. Looks like we got valve covers leaking some. You can see it coming down over the head. Leaking out the backside here on the rack, which is probably the pressure switch. I'm gonna have to say this thing's actually an 05 because of the gray plug for the ABS. So I said, see, we got our BCs on here. You can look in the bottom of those. They have a date code. It is 2015 on them. Looks like they use quality tie rod ends. Moog tie rod end there. Like I said, it was bumped up here. You can tell they did re-weld in part of the lower core there, and you can see some overspray on the inside of the bumper cover primer and stuff. It's hard to say exactly what that was, but I usually like to note that. I do see something on this transmission which I'm not a fan of. This thing having some RTV on it is not something you want to see on a transmission, because typically when these things are sealed with RTV, that means that they are getting ready to live a short life. Same with this. Look at this. RTV on the drain plug. That's a no-go. A little bit. Seal's got a little seepage, but that's just normal. Like I said, a lot of this is pretty nice, and a lot of it, you know, like I said, this 20-year-old car issues. We got some oil here. Looks like somebody resealed the oil filter housing here recently. A little bit of seepage. Nothing terrible. Power steering cooler looks okay. Lines look okay. There's a bunch of oil down this pipe, which we are waiting for an AGP pipe with, I believe, an HKS to come in that we're going to be installing in that. Oh yeah, you can see the bottom of the apron there where it was repaired. All right, so we got some of our parts out. We're actually waiting for some NTK O2s to come in because this is what came with it, but we're not going to be putting them in. We got a rack and pinion to install, a valve cover up here that we're going to be installing with a new gasket for that. We have a new intake gasket here, some new bolts in case we need them because of the old ones. Down here on this shelf here is our gauges. Looks like we got a new oil feed line for the turbo, PVC valve. We got an AGP big wheel stock turbo here, a good replacement for the stock turbos. There was one of these in there, TPS sensor repair kit, but being that this thing's getting a whole new kinetic harness, we're ready to go for that. Now down here we have upper and lower rad hoses. We have the cooler hoses. We have the hose that goes for the turbo, new tensioner, idler. Looks like we have cam seals. We got a 180 thermostat, a new pump and timing belt. Looks like, I believe it's the Blue Gates belt. We got another set of metal lines here for install. There is a cowl cover here to be installed on this also. There's a center mount coming. Center mount, a fuel pump rewire, the O2 sensors, and the charge piping. So, no matter what's going on here, this is going to be a big job just to install this. You know, the timing is also going to be a big job because we got to pull a lot of stuff apart for that. We are going to be draining the coolant system, so it's a good time to install our upper and lower hoses and the new metal hoses that go around, so everything's there. And then when we're in there doing that, we got a wiring harness, and then we got the turbo with the lines that are all going to be resealed, and the AGP wastegate, along with gauges that need to be run for wiring. So all that stuff needs to be taken care of and put in the car. So it doesn't look like it's a lot of stuff here, but this is actually going to be a lot of work with tearing everything apart, because we're going to be removing our strut bar, battery, all the vacuum lines. Basically every single coolant hose needs to be removed. The intake manifold, the charge pipes need to come off. So all that stuff's going to get drained. You know, we got to pull this thing apart. We're going to clean everything out down here. Looks like we might need to get a crank, a lower front main seal possibly if it needs it. You know, but some of the other stuff, like I said, you know what I mean? We're going to come in here. We're going to straighten this stuff out. This is bent here a little wrong. This is actually on upside down. You can see we have some oil seepage in here. Whether that's coming out of this silicone hose here or not, it's kind of a little tough to tell. I mean, a lot of this stuff looks like it's put together pretty decent on this car. I guess maybe when I have this out, maybe I'll try to straighten this just a little bit, and I'll touch it up with a little bit of silver paint while I'm in here. I'll have the whole intake removed, so I'm going to go over all that stuff, check everything, probably put it in the parts washer, get all the oil and everything off. The reason the harness is getting replaced, I mean, you know, you could replace some of these ends, but it has zip tied stuff here together, and you know, we're going to be trying to eliminate that stuff. This thing is probably going to get a couple more different mods, I believe, that are coming, and then this thing's probably going to get tuned, you know, just on the big wheel stock, just to give it a little bit more, and you know, wake it up some and try to just have a little bit more fun with this car and keep it in a good daily driver power range and kind of go from there. Okay, so onto the silver one. We did start into this thing here today some. We got the power steering rack is installed. There is a separate video on that. I kind of feel like it might help if I break that stuff down and kind of show what we did. Basically, we lowered the lower suspension member, unhooked it inside, disconnected our lines, bled everything out, and it's now installed and ready to go. It's not completely assembled yet here on the tie rod ends, because we're going to get started on pulling everything here apart to get, well, I guess we're going to start with getting some of this stuff out of the way here on the top, and we're going to get our coolant drained, because we're going to be getting ready to do a timing belt set, new cam seals, a valve cover, and, well, much more. So I've done plenty of videos on doing the timing. We do have, like I said, a AGP turbo here to install. So we're going to get everything here kind of like all at one shot. We are waiting for a couple parts yet. The wiring harness, the new metal piece, upper and lower rad hoses. So everything's going to kind of all fit together all at one time, along with this valve cover. It does need, I will need to get in here and clean this thing out. It looks like it's got a bunch of, I don't know if it's dirt or, what would that be? Aluminum corrosion on it from sitting somewhere for a long time. All right, well, we're getting into this. I mean, down inside the intake didn't look too bad. Everything came out pretty easy. We did drop one back bolt over here, fell right here, but we got a lot to clean up here from the valve cover seeping down the edges. Gasket was okay. You can see we got sweated oil lines here. It is kind of, it got warm, so like anything that was cold that was in here is actually perspiring now since I opened the doors. So it's just kind of part of it. What else? We pulled the starter so that we could get down here. It looks like the crank sensor looks like it was replaced. So, I mean, that's good. The locking tab doesn't look like it was pushed all the way. This looks like it's over that way, a little too far. Just like I said, pulling some stuff. This here was wrapped this way, and it should actually be this way, and tuck this down. This is actually bent up here, so we'll try to get that back into shape. And they actually had the wrong bolt there, so we'll get that right. The intake on the throttle, for the throttle bracket that holds the cable, was actually missing. You can see here, looks like the gasket right here was having some issues right in this area. Is this like one or two gaskets? Look at this. It was like, it was separating. So it's good. It's good that we're changing this out, because that would have failed really soon. Everything else looks alright. You know, cross there. You know what I mean? Not too much in the way of bad, like I said, other than this. We might try to, like I said, we might still try to straighten this out. Gotta get this bracket here pushed back where it's supposed to be. Like I said, we're still waiting for these to get here. So right now, basically, like I said, I'm removing everything so that we can get the coolant lines off. We're going to get the turbo pulled, the charge pipes, get the coolant drained, battery out of the way, battery tray, and then I'm going to get the hoist in here, and we're going to hook the chain, get this pulled over, and we're going to get this timing done. That way we have all of that finished up. We'll redo our cam caps. Then we can pull this thing over. We can get, you know, the front of this cylinder head we can get cleaned up when we got everything off out of here. We've got a new thermostat to put in, so we can just pull this whole assembly right out of the way and then not have to deal with it. I guess there was a thought that this thing was losing coolant. I mean, that could be coolant, but no. I mean, I don't think that this thing was leaking, because normally they'll leak up in here, but I think it was all oil, you know, so I don't really think that that was needed, you know. But we have one to install, just in case it's supposed to be good. Other than just doing a bunch of cleaning and getting some more stuff pulled off of here, that's where we're at. I mean, it's got these fancy little... it actually has a hold down. That's pretty impressive. Let's see, what did the stock turbo feel like? Oh, up and down. It's got a little bit of play, but it's something that I would expect from, you know, a high mileage turbo. I don't know why we have silicone here on the cam sensor. So we'll be pulling that off and actually probably putting the right seal in that, which will be an O-ring, so that we can get that sealed correctly. All right, let's see what we got going on here. Got our power steering pump removed. Most of the wiring is off. Looks like the tensioner was replaced at one time. The belts were pretty decent. We're working on getting the alternator unplugged here at the harness. A couple things we found were, I mean, it was lucky it did have the heat shield, but it was damaged right here. And then, what else? There was something else I just wanted to point out. Oh yeah, the grab a light for this, if I can find one. All right, so we got to get the turbo upper heat shield off, and you can tell someone was trying to cut at this one down here. So we got a nice sharp edge. That bolt stripped off, that bolt stripped off, so it's kind of coming up. Looks like it's coming out of these ones back here. Yeah, so I just got to cut down here around this one a little bit more, because it's kind of rusted away. Like even this bolt, it was rusted out here. And then we can get the turbo out, and the rest of these coolant lines down across here. I didn't really see anything leaking. It actually had this hose was actually replaced at one time. A lot of this actually just looks like oil, not any coolant. The coolant was actually still full, so I didn't see any signs of any leaking coolant anywhere. But we're still working on tear down. Like I said, the harness is almost off, and then we got to get the turbo off and the coolant lines, and then just match everything up. Lower rad hose, we did get everything drained. Like I said, it looks like the fans were replaced and the rad at one time, so slowly. All right, so I just wanted to note we got 2 different bolts in here, and this thing is sealed with silicone. So it should have an O-ring in there. I'm debating whether I want to pull it off. It does look like it was recently replaced with a new one, just not done right. So right now at this point, I'm getting to get ready to actually clean all of this stuff off. You know, it doesn't even look like it's anything that's aluminum. You know, I'm going to do all that before we pull this off. I'll probably try scraping at some of this. I might even dust that with a little bit of engine paint. Over here, our timing belt. You can tell it's been on there for a while. There is a lot of dust in here. I don't know if the camera's going to pick that up. So we're going to try to get that out of there. We'll try to clean along the back side here, but we're not really too worried about that until we have everything tore off over here. Like I said, we're waiting on some parts yet. We'll get all this thermostat housing here cleaned off. It doesn't look like anything's leaking, other than this is just all oil residue from this valve cover leaking down across this head. You can see just how bad it is over here on the end. I don't know if they even, is this even sealed in here? I'd have to say they probably didn't. That's all. It's all just chunks of oil. You can tell they did put some here on the top and some here, but this should have been over anyway. That could be leaking. Like I said, it could be out of this, but a lot of that you can tell is from the valve cover. So I'm going to do my little fancy trick. We're going to WD-40 this stuff, let it soak for a little bit. But before that, we're going to take a flathead screwdriver here and probably try to pry some of this heavy stuff off. It seems to work out better when you try to get that first. I'm going to throw a piece of cardboard underneath of here, so anything that runs down off of here. The worst part with doing it like this is, yeah, we're going to use a couple cans of brake clean, but we're going to do what we can with the WD-40 and get it as clean as possible. So here we go. We'll show you the finished product.